For the Drunkard's Path quilt block you will need some templates, so I'll leave the link in the description for free templates to download, and once you've done that you want to print them off 100% scale and cut out the 2 shapes. And then from that, to make just one square first, you want to cut one fabric from the quarter circle and then a different colour from the corner template. For this project I'm just going to use 2 colours, so I've got a blush pink and a burgundy red. And we're going to start by finding the centre point of this curve here. So grabbing the 2 edges, we're going to fold that in half. Find the centre of that curve and press with your fingers, and that will leave a little indent. And then we'll do the same thing along this inside curve here. We will fold that in half, press it with our fingers, and once it's open it will have a little indent. Now I'm going to place these 2 right sides together, lining up that centre point. So I've got my corner piece and my quarter circle lining up that centre line, and then we can pin that in place. And now what we're going to do is stretch these around to meet with right sides together. So you need plenty of pins, and then just gently ease those curves together so that the raw edges meet, and we can pin as we go. Now you can line up the 2 straight sides at the end as well, and then pin that in place. And then ease around, and then ease the rest into place and pin. And then same on the other side. We're going to ease that around the curve. And you can use as many pins as you want. I found that the more of these that you make, the easier it gets. It's definitely one you need practice on. So I'm going to line up that corner and then pin, and then just ease out in between those 2 pins and stick a pin in there too. So you'll have something like that, and then the back is slightly ruffled, and that's exactly how we want it to be. So we'll grab the sewing machine, and we are going to sew this in place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I like to go from the quarter circle side, and I'm going to make sure that that's definitely lined up in the corner, and remove my first pin, and we can start sewing. Removing each pin as you go and just easing that curve around. And just make sure that the fabric underneath is sitting flat as it goes under the machine. And then you'll have something like this. Using a sharp pair of scissors, we're going to snip into that seam allowance all the way around that curve. And this will ensure that when we press this seam, it's going to sit flat. Depending on what you want to make with this quilting block, you'll need to make quite a few more of these quarter circles. And I'm going to make a cushion cover out of mine, so I have 8 of each different colourways, so that's 16 of these squares in total. So I cut 8 of the burgundy quarter circles and 8 of the pink corners, and then 8 of the pink quarter circles and 8 of the burgundy corners, so they're opposites. And that's what's going to give you a really cool effect when you put these together. And there's loads of different variations you could do with this, and I'll pop some of those up on the screen now for you to see. And I've decided to sew mine into a circle design. So I'm going to take the same pink circles and make a circle there. And then from the same ones, I'll make 2 semicircles. Let's move my plant. It's too big for the table. And then from the other colours, we'll do the opposite. So 2 semicircles at the top and then make a circle at the bottom. And I'm going to sew these together in rows, so starting from the top and then sew them in rows like so, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance throughout. And even though some of my squares are slightly wonky, I'm just making sure that the top of the semicircle joins right at the point there to make it look seamless. So making sure here that the top of my semicircles are meeting. So once they're all sewn together, we can press the seams flat. And at this point, if you want to go in and just neaten up some of these edges that haven't quite neatened up properly, you can do that now. So just trim those back to a straight line. And now we can sew these rows together to create our cushion front. And I'm making sure to line up the centre point, so I've got a clean line going down the middle. And with the circles, making sure to line up the sides of the circle to make a proper circle. And that's our block. I'll give that another press, and that's how it looks once it's all pressed and finished. I'm going to quilt this before I turn it into a cushion cover, so I've just added some H630 to the back of this top panel, so that when I quilt it, it's going to give it a nice bit of depth. Now I just need to decide how I'm going to quilt it. I think I might quilt around each circle. So I've just grabbed a matching thread for each of the colours, so I've got the blush pink and then I've got like a burgundy, and then I think I'll just kind of echo quilt around each circle and semicircle shape in the right colour. And I don't want it to stand out too much, so I think if I do a blush pink around the edge, it will just give this a bit of a border. So I'll change my thread over to burgundy and do the same thing on the other side. So that's how we're looking once we're done quilting. For the back of the cushion, I'm going to use the same two colours from the front, and I'm going to make an envelope back. So to work out how much fabric to cut for an envelope back, you want to measure the front of the cushion first and measure the width. So this is 20 inches. So you need to cut two pieces of fabric that are 20 inches wide, for example. And this is 20 inches square. So to get the length measurement, you need half your length, so half of 20 is obviously 10, and then you want to add 4 inches to the length, making it 20 inches by 14 inches. So you need to cut two pieces of fabric measuring that size. And once you have your two back pieces of fabrics, we are going to hem one of the long sides of each piece, just by folding it over 1/4 inch and then 1/4 inch again. And you can press that in place and then top stitch. And once those two pieces are hemmed, we can sew them to the front piece. So with right sides together, we'll place one of the back pieces over the front, making sure that that hemmed edge is facing inwards towards the centre of the cushion. And then with our second piece, right sides together, I think I want the pink to go under, so placing that on top. Again with the raw edge facing inwards, and we'll pop that under the burgundy, making sure to overlap the two backing pieces. So I've got the pink under the burgundy with the hemmed edge in the centre. So we'll pin those in place, and then we're going to sew around the entire edge of the cushion cover using 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're done. And taking a sharp pair of scissors, we can cut the corners off of our cushion cover, and this will make the points nice and pointy. Just make sure not to cut through your stitches. And now we can turn it right side out. And then finding a cushion pad to the same size and inserting that inside. This one's a little bit big, we'll see if it works. It's quite nice being it a bit bigger actually, it makes it nice and plump. And that is the finished cushion cover.